Honestly, this is getting quite ridiculous now. Another player. Two in 2 days. This is today's Arsenal transfer show. Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys and girls for another episode of what is the Arsenal transfer show. Joining you every single morning at 8 a.m. UK time. Thank you so much as always for tuning in, for listening. It is greatly appreciated. I hope you're doing good. I hope you're doing well. I hope you've had a really, really good start to your week. And now, of course, that it's finishing on a Friday, I hope that the weekend is going to be treating you well also. And what a week it has been. What a time to return to action and to get involved with Arsenal transfers again. It has been absolutely non-stop in this building. Incredible scenes, really, that Arsenal have been able to really generate so much business in the time that it has taken them to, well, play a couple of training games, if that, in 2 days. Is that what you could do in football in 2 days? I suppose you could play a match and have a training session. Well, they've managed to effectively wrap up nearly 4 transfers in that time. And yeah, it shows you that maybe the myths that Arsenal are always just so slow when it comes to to transfers. It is indeed a myth. And of course, when we've looked at the last 3 transfer windows in the summer of 2024, 23 and 22, we've discussed how, of course, Arsenal have managed to get their business done in the majority of those windows well ahead of their pre-season responsibilities. And it looks like Arsenal are going to be attempting to do that in the bulk of their moves before the 2025 summer pre-season tour as well. So plenty to discuss today, a new player to talk about, the return of the Tactical Breakdown show, and your thoughts and comments in our chat box as well. If you haven't dropped a like on the video already, please do. We're trying to reach 1,000 likes on every single show, and we managed to do that yesterday and the day before as we've started this challenge once again. So if you would be ever so kind to drop a like on the video, it really would help us out. I'll make sure to remind you again at the start of part 2. Good morning to those joining us live in the chat box. Good morning to Matt G, to Adua, to Matt G, to Barney. We've got Tom, we've got Knowledge, we've got Amaka, we've got Paul and Ange, we've got Grantley Poos, we've got Roy and Mark and Rob, we've got Kim and Maximius, we've got Bakary Lasagna and Stevie and Kevin and Brian and Shari. M. Norris, good morning to Scouse Gooner and James, Jonathan, Christopher, Anthony, Jose, G said 4 and Tom, and plenty more of you listeners listening in as well. I think I spotted a wild Owen in the chat box as well. Good to see you. Thank you so much for listening as always. Right, let's not waste any more time. Otherwise, the moaners will be complaining about the length of this intro. Which, by the way, is always available to skip if you're listening on catch up. I leave little chapters at the bottom of the show, so you can always click to the part of the video that you want to watch. If you like the news bits best, click through the news. If you like the Q&A best, you can click straight to the Q&A. But if you listen live, you've got to suffer through it all. So let's jump, shall we, into today's slides. We begin with Christian Norgaard, and a deal for the Danish international is hoped to be wrapped up by this weekend for around 11 million euros plus add-ons. Incredibly cheap deal. You know, we don't really need to go too much in depth about this one other than part 2 if you've got any further questions on this front. But it's a deal that Arsenal are, really moving and accelerating towards quite quickly. And there is an expectation that the Dane will be an Arsenal player very soon indeed, along with Kepa, who supposedly completed all of his medical details yesterday. And now the expectation is Norgaard will follow suit and is now the next scheduled player to arrive at the Shubbleroyalty Training Centre to complete those responsibilities and sign in as a brand new Arsenal player. So good news on this front, and hopefully we'll be talking about Norgaard in his brand new Arsenal kit very soon as well. Big news, though, yesterday morning, Myles Lewis-Skelly signing a brand new contract with the club. Fantastic to see. Always an absolute delight when we see brand new signings, of course, but when it comes to contract renewals of players that we have just got such a fantastic attachment to, well, it is a joy. And he said, of course, upon signing that new deal, I'm so proud and happy. I know those words are simple, but I think they sum up how I feel signing for this club. I'm a fan, and it's like a dream come true. I've embodied the values of Hale End and come through, and I've still got a lot of years ahead of me. So if I can keep staying humble and being a good person. It's the most important thing to me. I know I've taken a lot of experience from the games about positive moments, the mistakes that I've made. I'm definitely more ready now for the next season. I just want to keep learning and keep improving. I want a legacy. I want to win everything there is to win in the game. I want to win trophies on the biggest stages whilst being a person that's always learning and stays grounded, which is so important. To my understanding, this is a 5-year contract running through until 2030. And it's not lost. I didn't actually recognize the little stay humble comment until I read it through just then. But a lovely little nod to some of his, some of the lore, if you like, around Myles Lewis-Skelly's first season officially as a senior Arsenal player last year, in which he rose to the biggest of stages, scored on the biggest of stages against Manchester City, and really did humble a certain Erling Haaland. Rodrygo was again left out of Real Madrid's starting lineup yesterday. He did, instead of the game previously where he came off the bench, rather stayed on the bench. This time he did indeed come off the bench. Real Madrid beating Rebel Salzburg 3-0, goals from Vinicius Jr., Gonzalo Garcia, and importantly, Federico Valverde, who actually started the game in that right wing slot, kind of playing in that right wing side, if you like, with Arda Güler, of course, also playing a role more fluidly in that team. So, yeah, it's an interesting one. It was interesting to see Xabi Alonso actually move with a back three, Rudiger, Tchouaméni, Hausen, with the back three with Garcia and Trent Alexander-Arnold, of course, playing in the side also. But it was intriguing to see the structure of the side. Garcia is definitely a player that needs to be looked out for. Looks quite the interesting talent, of course. 21 years of age. He's having come through the Real Madrid Youth Academy and is making an impact already at senior level. But Rodrygo is, of course, the player in focus. All the reports yesterday, transfer-wise, were, of course, that if his situation at Real Madrid does not seem to be in a position whereby, well, he is seen as somebody that is going to stay at Real Madrid, that Arsenal will pounce and see him as a fantastic market opportunity for the club this summer. In terms of the centre-forward position, Arsenal continue to be trying to resolve the financial demands of both Sporting and Leipzig as they chase both Viktor Gyökeres and Benjamin Sesko. Not really any major updates beyond what we already know on this front, but I didn't want to, of course, leave it out and leave you thinking, why haven't we discussed the centre-forward position? It's as it was, the continuation of those talks. There were some suggestions that maybe Leipzig had become a little bit more amenable regarding their price. There were some reports coming out of Germany that the 80 to 100 million euro asking price has maybe dropped to 70 million euros, which of course would be much more favourable to Arsenal, just at the top end of that 50 million pound mark, towards 60 million pounds if they were to sell for 70 million euros, which I think would encourage Arsenal to again come to the table for Sesko more aggressively. He is the player that they prefer, the player that they want as a priority. There's also been some claims that Gyokeres is now more open to the idea of moving to Manchester United, if indeed his dream move to Arsenal cannot happen. So still, this remains a very open scenario for the club. Odds have been slashed on Eberechi Eze joining Arsenal. A number of bookmakers moving the price of Eze to Arsenal to as low as 2-1 yesterday, and that sparked a number of reports. Of course, we saw Ben Jacobs and Alex Crook working alongside each other with TalkSport to break the news that Arsenal had supposedly added the player to their list of targets for the summer. I can tell you that I obviously reported in May, quite a long time ago now, that Eberechi Eze was indeed a player that Arsenal are interested in this summer, alongside Ed Aarons of The Guardian as well. Ed, of course, came onto the channel, as you very well know, and watched while I was in Canada, and talked about Eberechi Eze being a player alongside Kaoru Mitoma as being two players that are on Arsenal's list of potential targets for the window. He has a release clause at Crystal Palace. My understanding of that is a £67.5 million release clause at Palace. So if Arsenal want to get the deal done, they would, of course, need to activate that. Palace are not interested whatsoever in doing any kind of negotiation for Eze. They always drive a hard bargain when it comes to their players. And so a £67.5 million release clause is what it would take to get Eze. For me, I think he is absolutely worth that £67.5 million release clause. As you know, if you've been listening to the channel for a while, I've been a big fan of Eze. Would love to see him come into the club. I think that he could be a fantastic option for us in a number of positions, either as a 10, either as an 8, either as a number, the opposite side's a 7. Is that an 11 in old numbers? Maybe. But certainly playing on that left-hand side, he can play that position as well. So certainly Eberechi Eze is a player I'd like to see. But, of course, this would be linked in, I think, with the Rodrygo scenario. So if it was to be Eze, it's unlikely that Rodrygo, I think, would come in, and vice versa. He is an option for Arsenal as one of their attacking signings during this window. I'd say the biggest story, though, yesterday, beyond even Myles Lewis-Skelly's contract, which was a huge story and a fantastic piece of news, was around Valencia defender Cristhian Mosquera. Now, his name is actually not entirely brand new. It is a name, of course, that has been mentioned in Arsenal circles for a little bit. However, the news that was broken by the ever-credible Hand of Arsenal, of course, and then later, of course, doubled down on by both David Ornstein and Fabrizio Romano, amongst many others, and certainly on our side as well. Cristhian Mosquera is a player that Arsenal are in talks with over signing during this summer window, which would be, again, quite the turnaround. It's amazing to think, of course, now where we sit, that only a week ago there were complaints that Arsenal really were not doing much whatsoever at all when it came down to transfers. A week later, despite being told that nothing's happening, Arsenal, of course, have signed Kepa, agreed, of course, completely with Zubimendi, now having signed, effectively are basically end of negotiations for Christian Norgaard, and now a fourth player before the end of June, expecting, of course, to accelerate this negotiation with Arsenal, as reported by Hand of Arsenal, still calling him Hand of Arsenal these days, Hand of Arsenal, that, of course, Arsenal are indeed looking to try and do a deal below 19 million euros, considering the fact he only has 1 year left on his contract. Of course, Arsenal can try and get a very favourable deal for the Spanish Youth International that is currently playing for the under-21s, or had been playing for the under-21s prior to them being eliminated by England in the under-21 European Championships. And I can tell you that today you are going to get a Cristhian Mosquera analysis. So we'll be joined by an expert on the channel. This will probably be a pre-recorded episode that will go out a little bit later on today, this afternoon, this evening, for you to listen back to watch back, and to get, of course, some information about who exactly Mosquera is, what type of player Arsenal are going to be getting, and if indeed they're making the right choice for somebody who has been linked with a number of high-profile clubs, including RB Leipzig, Bayern Munich, and even Real Madrid have been very keen on the idea of signing the Spanish Youth International. So, yes, Arsenal trying to close a deal around that 19 million euro figure, hopefully maybe even lower than that, to be Arsenal's fourth potential signing before the end of June. Of course, these deals may be confirmed within July because of accounting reasons, but all four players seem to be in very positive situations, very positive indeed, before the end of June, just showing quite how proactive Arsenal have been. Worth adding to this, as has been widely reported, that Andrea Berta is the driving force behind this particular deal. He's a player that was very much on the Italians' radar while he was at Atletico Madrid, and would have looked to sign him for Atletico Madrid had he still been at the Spanish side this season. But being at Arsenal, he's brought in some of his own ideas, including Mosquera, who appears to be, of course, one of those key figures that Arsenal are looking now to add to their team to be a backup to the likes of Saliba and Gabriel. He's more of a right-sided player, but is very comfortable to play on both sides, as you will discover more about in our Tactical Breakdown show a little bit later on today. So look forward to that. Well, let's go to part two, your questions and more, right after this. All right, this is part two of today's show, of course, where we'll be jumping into the chat box and tackling as many of your questions as we can. Just a quick scroll on the old Twitter feed just to check in case anything dropped while we were live, because it's very possible these days that indeed could happen. We are so busy, so active in the market these days. It's very difficult to try and keep up with everything that's going on, even when you're just doing a show for 20 odd minutes. Right, let's go into the chat box, shall we? And get some of your feelings and thoughts. Khan says, Tom, thoughts on team using ticks breaking that we had agreed personal terms with Eze? Sammy Mukbel said the Palace that will take installments in the release clause, so there's rumours of a 20 million over 3 seasons and 8 million in add-ons. Certainly, he is keen. It's my understanding that Eze would indeed be very happy to move to Arsenal if Arsenal were indeed to agree a deal with Crystal Palace for the player. Personal terms, not a problem whatsoever. So what TNAT is suggesting there is certainly the case. Its personal terms are not a problem when it comes to Eze, but the issue kind of is around this part that Arsenal see, I think, Rodrygo as their priority attacking signing outside of the centre forward this summer, and Eze would be something of a alternative option if indeed Rodrygo wasn't there. Now, they have to be conscious of the fact that they're not the only club that are going to be moving for attacking players this summer. And so therefore, Tottenham, we know, are a big fan of Eze. And of course, I think while he would prefer a move to Arsenal, if clubs are more aggressive in chasing Eze than Arsenal are, they could end up, of course, missing out on him if they are waiting for Rodrygo. Adji says, I think this is the time that Arsenal should invest in more players. We need 2 strikers, 2 wingers, 2 midfielders, 1 defender and a goalkeeper. Unfortunately, you're not going to get 2 strikers. I'd hope that Arsenal might be able to add 2 more attacking players on top of a centre-forward, like an attacking midfielder and, of course, a wide player. It would be lovely to get 2 midfielders, but that does seem to be what we are doing. Christian Norgaard and, of course, Mendy coming in, a defender being Mosquera, goalkeeper being Kepa. The idea of signing 2 centre-forwards, though, very unlikely. Arsenal already have Kai Havertz. Of course, Gabriel Jesus is expected to return at the end of the year. So they will have 3 centre-forwards. They've got Trossard. They've got Marino. They are not going to sign 2 centre-forwards. I just cannot see it happening. Let's go to Sam says, we're signing Mosquito. That's not his name. Mosquero is his name, but not a striker. Unbelievable. I mean, we are looking to sign a striker, Sab. That is absolutely what Arsenal are still trying to do during this window. You just got to be a little bit more patient. Those bigger, more expensive, complicated deals do take longer to complete, of course, than those cheaper deals like we're seeing Arsenal do at the moment. But it's still very impressive what they're managing to do. And that's summed up here by Namdo, who says backup keeper, backup centre-back, backup defensive midfielder for less than 40 million euros. Very impressive work. Add to that our starting defensive midfielder for next season, Myles Lewis-Skelly, of course, coming in as well. Arsenal effectively bringing in 4 players for around £80 million. Very, very impressive indeed. So, yeah, how can we really complain? I mean, about £80-90 million is costing for those 4 players. Absolutely brilliant. Raz says, Barcola looks like he's not moving. That means Rodrygo aside, there is no way a winger is available that is a clear upgrade over Martinelli in such a scenario. Eze makes so much sense. Hoodie Gooner says, if Rodrygo wasn't an option, would you prefer Eze or Simmons? Eze for me, certainly. I think there's far more guarantees and assurances about the idea of signing Eberechi Eze as opposed to signing Rodrygo. Sally says, it's not a question. I'm just excited. Sorry, I don't mind that at all, Sally. If you want to let us know, anybody, that you're excited about this window, we would love to hear it. Luke has been a member on the channel now for 21 months. Of course, is our Arsenal kit collector as well. We've had some fantastic kit collections shown on our phone-in shows by some of our supporters as well in the background, which is great to see. Still working on this. It's probably going to take a little bit of a while before we can showcase our scarves on the channel. But Luke says, would it be considered unscrupulous if a sporting director hijacked a deal for their new club from their old club, i.e. Edu and Zubi? I don't mean unscrupulous, but it's certainly something that could and has happened in the past. It wouldn't surprise me if that was the case, but I don't see that happening with Nottingham Forest at the moment. They're struggling to land any players at the moment. This window, I think it was at Timothy Weah, has already turned down the opportunity to join there and is staying at Juve, or at least is moving somewhere else as well. Tulip says, are we getting a Rodrygo, Eze, Kudus, Gabby comparison and analysis? It will certainly get some data-driven analysis around Eze, of course, and Rodrygo, if and when we come to those tactical breakdowns. We just need a little bit more to happen. Of course, with Mosquera effectively joining, we're well open to doing a tactical breakdown. When it comes to Norgaard, a very similar scenario as well. So, yeah, certainly that's going to be plenty of stuff to keep us going for a little while. And of course, if those forward players start to become more likely, or we get a standout candidate, we of course will be doing those analyses on those players too, as well as one of the centre forwards. Should we be linked? Not linked, we are linked, but should we look like we are going to land one of those two? That's when we will kick into overdrive with those centre forwards. Sam says Arteta is allergic to strikers. Clearly not, because Arsenal are in conversations, of course, for 2 this summer. Biko says, were you with Berta on your holiday? This sudden boom of activity is too much of a coincidence. Saying nothing. Sean says patience is something that a lot of Arsenal fans lack. Indeed, mate. Absolutely. Flourish Wave says we need Eze for Odegaard's position and on the left-hand side. Agreed. If Odegaard's form dips, we haven't really had too much in the way of depth for that role. Eze brings that in without question. Christopher says Norgaard feels a lot more like a Xhaka than a simple Jorginho replacement. Direct passing, stalwart defending, and a little bit of an irritant as well. I mean, his dual statistics have been absolutely fantastic. His interceptions as well. Only Ryan Gravenberch managed more interceptions last season for a defensive midfielder in comparison to Norgaard. So, again, those statistics are very, very impressive indeed. Bulgarian Gooner said a couple of months ago there were rumours about James Ellis, the head of recruitment, leaving the club, but there's been nothing. End development. It was rubbish. There was no truth in those claims whatsoever. Mikey says, genuinely think the hold up on the striker is linked to another big deal. That can be the only plausible reason as to why we're holding off the trigger. It's not the only plausible reason at all, Mikey. The reason why Arsenal have not pulled the trigger when it comes to either of the 2 centre forwards is because they're yet to find, common ground with Leipzig or Sporting on the price. That is what is delaying this situation. Personal terms, both players, I think, would be very keen to move to Arsenal. If Arsenal can agree a deal with their respective clubs and, of course, want to push ahead with each of the other centre forward, more so Sesko, as we know he is the preference, then they will move. But it is about agreeing a deal with those clubs. That is proving the most challenging point at this point in time. Eddie says, how many signings should we make for Arsenal to become the favourites for the title? Who are those players, in your opinion? It's very difficult because I don't think necessarily there is any number of signings Arsenal can make this summer that make them the favourites for the title. I think Liverpool are the favourites for the league. I think Man City will be the next favourites for the league after that. And then I think, of course, Arsenal will be third favourites for the title. It's just based upon what we've seen. City managed to win however many, 5 of the last 7 titles. Liverpool have, of course, won 2 of those last 7 titles. Arsenal cannot be considered favourites no matter the business they do in the market because of the pedigree of the 2 teams that they are going up against. We can be considered more favourites for a title when we begin to win them. But when you're going up against Liverpool and City, who have already won them, and of course added to their squads this summer as well, there is no scenario where Arsenal will be favourites for the league this season. I'm sorry to disappoint people and to bring the mood down, but there is no amount of deals that Arsenal can do during this window that is going to realistically make them favourites for the title. Liverpool and City will be above them in terms of the odds and for the favourites for the league. That's just the reality of having won those titles, Arsenal not having won those titles. So we will be third favourites going into the league this season, no matter what business Arsenal do. James says, do you think there's a risk that with a potential £80 million spend that we could be in a position where we need to sell to buy to get forwards? Most fans think we need. Not necessarily the pressure, but obviously there are players Arsenal are looking to move on. We know Zinchenko is one of those. We know that Fabio Vieira and Reece Nelson are also players of that ilk as well. Gyokeres, I don't think the club wants to sell, but if they get a very good offer, he could leave. The same goes, I think, for Gabriel Martinelli and Leandro Trossard also. So I don't think there is necessarily this need to sell before Arsenal can buy, but certainly there are players that Arsenal will be very open to seeing leave if they get the right offers between now and the end of the window. Sal says, one of the Arsenal's big achievements last season is attracting good and young players. And if you remember before 2 or 3 years ago, a lot of those players would hesitate in coming to Arsenal and would prefer other clubs. Absolutely. Beef Bully says, Tom, did you see City last night? They're on it and they're going to win it this year. Trust me, they're certainly one of the favourites for the league. And, that's just the way that the Premier League is. Manchester City, with Rodrygo back in the team, will again be one of those key favourites for the title. No doubt about that. Let's go scroll down the chat a little bit more. Mark says, for me, Eze and Kudus are comparable, talented and versatile, but costly, especially Kudus. I'd rather Rodrygo than either of them. Do you agree? I really like the Eze link. I've been talking about him for a long time, but Rodrygo could be a transformative signing for Arsenal. Jasper says, I believe that we should just pay this supposed 10 million difference between Sesko and Gyokeres. It's better we overpay now. The top targets are available. Not for me. Arsenal need to negotiate the best possible deal. If you become weak in your negotiations, if Andrea Berta sets out his stall as somebody who is just going to pay what clubs want for players, it makes future negotiations very, very difficult. We need to be strong in the market. We need to negotiate the best possible deal, and we need to protect ourselves and our reputation as well. If you just, it is ultimately kind of what society is like these days. Microtransactions. If you're playing FIFA, I imagine a lot of you just buy FIFA points, just to get a quick lead. It's just it's society these days. We spend to get ahead. We spend to get the best possible access to what we can do. And that's not the best way to do it when it comes to business. And for Arsenal, they do not want to just overspend and get deals done because it has a longer term impact, which is just not worth breaking your reputation for. Biko says, Tom, most don't consider that if we spend big on our main targets first, the rest of the market for you becomes more expensive because every club believes then you have more money to spend. We must be smart. I think you're absolutely right, my friend. Jasmine says, my feeling is that we'll go for a right winger before the sales. The Rodrygo and Eze will depend on Trossard and Martinelli leaving. What are your thoughts? I don't think a right winger necessarily is what Arsenal are going to be looking at. We're certainly looking at more of a left-sided forward than a right-sided one, I think, between now and the end of the window. Chunho says, Tom, any idea when we will see, when will the squad meet up to fly for Singapore in the first pre-season game? So my knowledge is that Arsenal will return to pre-season training on July the 7th. They will then, of course, have a small, short, warm weather training camp for a few days. They then fly back to England and fly off to Asia on July the 19th before their first game, of course, in July 24th against Newcastle or Liverpool. Or Milan. No, it's Milan, isn't it? It's Milan. They'll be playing not Liverpool this summer. It's Spurs, Newcastle, and Milan. So, yeah, Milan is first. 24th of July is that game. So, but they fly out on the 19th of July. 23rd of July is the game, sorry, at 7:30 local time, 12:30 UK time. Dave says Kepa 5 million, Zubi 50 million, Norgaard 9.3 million, and Mosquera 60 million is about 81 million pounds. Great business for 4 players, in my opinion, and a great start. AMBV says your club is a joke. I'm assuming he must be talking about Tottenham or Chelsea or Man United because they're certainly the jokes of the league right now. TG says, as they don't believe everything you hear, they certainly don't. Not everything. Cross Jonky says, sadly, Liverpool have a much better squad all around than us, as I think City do as well. I believe that we're still reeling from a bad January, and that's why we're doing a lot of business now. January was a failure. The summer before that was not a success, and we are doing a lot of business now to make up for those failings, certainly. Owen says, if I was selling my house, I'd 100% want our fan base to be the ones buying it. Indeed, to just pay what you want. Just get it done. Get it over the line. Doesn't matter whatsoever. It's very amusing. Mark says, what would the signing of Mosquera mean for the pursuit of Yoel Hato, who I keep hearing we're still after? Might Hato sign him in? We're moving MLS into midfield. Hato's a player that Arsenal have been interested in for a long time, but there isn't really that many indications, like seriously, that we are moving for him during this window. So it is and was always more likely that they wanted a player who could play more so on the right-hand side, and he's a lot cheaper, Mosquera. Hato would be quite an expensive deal to do, which I'm not sure they can do with the other desires they have during this window. Shane says, where does Eze predominantly play for Palace? Could he be our new left winger and a backup number 10? Yeah, I mean, he plays in a number of positions, of course, does Eberechi Eze. He is a player, of course, that can play in so many different positions, predominantly playing kind of an attacking midfield role, but can easily play as a wide playmaker if indeed he needs to. Can also play as a number 8 if he needs to. He's got many, many abilities. He's played 8 for England, for example. So, yeah, very confident in Eze transforming that Arsenal midfield or the wide area, if indeed he is, to join the club during this window. Jasmine says, Tom, will you be coming to Singapore for the preseason tour? Sadly not. I've got a wedding this summer, so I'm not going on the tour. Our fantastic colleague and And FL legend Rob Guest is going to be going for us this summer to Singapore and to Hong Kong. I wish I was there, but I have a very important wedding to attend, of which I'm a best man for. So I can't, I could not skimp out on it for a trip to Asia, which is a shame, but next year it'll come around again, I'm sure. Aggie says, I think Arsenal should cancel the bid of signing Sesko and focus on Gyokeres, because I think Sesko is not ready for Arsenal. You all have seen Gyokeres as accepted, unlike Sesko, who is still weighing up his options. I mean, to be fair, I think there's a lot of noise around the Sesko personal term stuff, which is a lot of, well, what I just said, noise. I don't really believe too much about it. I think that the player would absolutely move to Arsenal if they agree a fee with RB Leipzig. I don't think personal terms would be too much of a problem whatsoever. I think there's been a lot of, misinformation around that side of things. So, yeah, if I was a betting man, I would lean more towards it being Sesko, who is the player that Arsenal end up getting. But it's certainly not a done deal at this point. Chinosis Mosquera is a wonderful signing, and we are already planning ahead in the event that Saliba does not sign a new deal. But I, of course, hope Saliba signs. Talks are ongoing with Saliba. The club are very calm about Saliba's situation, and there is hope that he will renew his contract. Real Madrid looking at Ibrahima Konate, more so now, it seems, as a defensive addition for the future. Luke says, after Odegaard's season, we definitely need to play Eze in an attacking midfield role. It's interesting. Odegaard didn't have his best of seasons at all, but if you actually have a look at some of his metrics, they still improved upon the previous season, which shows you kind of the view that we have of the player. I also think Odegaard ended the season quite well. He really did start to show again his best. We saw that at Liverpool. We saw that in the game against Southampton as well. I think there was certainly more from Odegaard that we saw that was more akin to what we've expected of him over the last few years. So I think he will have a really important summer, rest, relaxation, reset, go again, and have a strong 25-26 season indeed. A few more questions before we wrap things up. Let's go to Serkan, who says, my ideal window was maybe 8 or 9 players, and the fact that we seem to have already got 3 of the least important ones nailed down for very good prices fills me with excitement. I mean, the idea that Arsenal would sign 8 or 9, I didn't see as realistic at all. 7 could be something that Arsenal do. 4 already, potentially before the end of June, and then still wanting a forward, a wide player. And according to David Ornstein, Arsenal want to sign 3 forward players this window. So certainly 6 is very, very possible. 7, it's still feasible. So maybe they will make me eat my hat and sign 7 players during this window. 8 or 9, though, I think that's asking a bit too much. Adua says, quick question, what is a 10 out of 10 window? 10 out of 10 window has always been backup goalkeeper, defender, with Partey leaving, 2 defensive midfielders, an attacking midfield option like an Eze, a wide option like a Rodrygo, and of course that centre forward. That would be a dream window for Arsenal, for me. If they were able to sign those players, that would be a 10 out of 10 window. If you don't get the attacking midfielder but sign everybody else, it's still for me a 9 out of 10, because you've got to factor in that we've got Ethan Nwaneri. You've got to think about Max Dowman, of course, who Arteta has already name-checked as a potential attacking midfield option for Arsenal next season. So a 9 out of 10 window would be that. But if they did sign an Eze on top of a wide player as well, that would make it a 10 out of 10 window for me. You'll still get people. And by the way, I really wanted to highlight Alex from the Different Knocks tweet yesterday. I thought it was absolutely spot on. Let me see if I can find it, because I thought it was absolutely fantastic. So let me see if I can get it up for you, because it was a really, really, really good tweet. I don't know if any of you saw it, but if you're not following Alex or, of course, the Different Knock on social media, you certainly should be. Let me read it to you. Here it is, at Alex Moneypenny on X, of course, host of the Different Knock YouTube channel. He said, I would respect those who say, why are the clubs so useless in the market? If they actually held their hands up when we start doing stuff. Like if they went, yeah, no, fair, I was wrong. We obviously were doing stuff. I just needed to be patient. But they don't. They just want to bash the club because they don't get their transfer dopamine on June 1st. You filled in our squad holes brilliantly, by the way, before the PSR deadline with prospects and experience. And now in the new financial year, we're going to go and get some top attacking talent and confirm one of the most exciting midfielders in the sport, that being Zubimendi, of course. And you'll get absolutely crickets from that lot. You don't love the club. You love moaning. pathetic. He followed that up with another tweet, which was, in quotation marks, bro, we've signed a rubbish DM, a Chelsea reject, and a kid from Spain. Ha, ha, ha. Okay, you're wrong about the player quality, and you will be proved so. But whatever. That's not the point. The point is you'll shift the goalposts again and again, and then won't own up to it. You'll go from we don't do anything, or we won't do anything, to we won't do anything good, to we haven't done anything good, to silence. It's going to happen, and never will be there more of a mea culpa when have you ever seen one of those guys hold their hands up? Boring. So spot on. I couldn't have written a better tweet myself. It's absolutely perfection when it comes to rounding up and assessing and just analysing what the critics, what the moaners, what the negative Nellies have been saying this whole time. You don't see him get the credit. Arsenal getting 4 players done before the end of June, and you're not going to see those people being and crediting. It's just not going to happen. It's not going to. Alex was absolutely spot on. Fair play to him. Fair play to him for writing it. Fair play for standing out. Fair play for speaking up. Absolute respect. So go give Alex plenty of flowers for that tweet, because I thought it was absolutely indeed very, 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 very spot on. And Alex, of course, came on the show. If you haven't yet watched back our show that we did during the Canada break, he was one of our guests as our pre-recorded episodes. But yes, do make sure that you tune in a little bit later on today. We will have a tactical breakdown coming out on Cristhian Mosquera. Very much looking forward to that, and listening to one of our good friends of the channel who's been on a number of times to talk about La Liga players and give their insight into what Arsenal are going to be getting their hands on in terms of Cristhian Mosquera. So make sure you go and give that a listen. Have a fantastic Friday. Stay safe, stay well, stay happy and respectful. Thank you so much for listening. Do drop a like on the video. Please do help us try and reach 1K every single day on the channel. I'll be back with you tomorrow morning, bright and early, as usual, 8 a.m. UK time. So make sure you tune us in then. And of course, also to our tactical breakdown a little bit later on today. And as always, up the Arsenal.